Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Smith, and today we're going to discuss strategies to keep calves growing and healthy throughout winter. When a calf is born, its thermal neutral zone is between 50 and 78 degrees Fahrenheit. The thermal neutral zone is a temperature range within which a calf won't have to use energy in order to maintain its body temperature. Outside of that temperature range, especially in winter, the calf is going to have to use energy in order to keep its body temperature where it needs to be, and will divert that energy from growth to maintenance. When a calf reaches a month old, the lower end of that thermal neutral zone drops down to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. But even in Wisconsin, we spend a lot of time during winter below 32 degrees. So how do we keep that calf growing throughout the winter? First, we want to look at nutrition. What are we doing with the plane of nutrition that calf is on, especially when it comes to milk? On a lot of farms, we've seen that it takes another ½ pound of solids per calf per day in order to maintain the same growth rate that we would see with a calf with a summer birth date. If we're feeding whole milk, that's another 2 quarts per day of milk that's at 12.5% solids. So there's really 3 different ways we can go about achieving that goal. We can increase the volume at each feeding. So if we're feeding 3 quarts, we can go to 4 quarts. We can increase the number of times per day we feed. If we're feeding 2x, we can add in a 3rd feeding around noon. Or we can increase the density of our milk from 12.5 to 13% solids up to 14 or 14.5% solids. If you're looking at any of these strategies, you really need to figure out what's going to work best for your team and how to change that diet slowly so that calves don't end up getting sick or scouring on you. Your CP Feeds nutritionist can help you figure out which program or option would be best for your farm and how to tailor that to your needs. Depending on how you're feeding milk, you also want to calibrate your equipment to make sure you're feeding the right volume that you expect to be feeding. Not that 3 quarts is actually 2 quarts. So we want to make sure that we've got our volume correct, and then we really need to check our temperatures. The field test isn't good enough in winter because cooler water is going to still feel warm. And when we get out to pails, that milk will lose anywhere from 15 to 25 degrees of heat as soon as that milk hits the pail. So we need to make sure we're compensating for that so that the milk going into the calf is between 103 and 108 degrees Fahrenheit. If the milk gets colder than that, she has to use her body energy to heat that milk up to her body temperature before she's really able to digest it and utilize it. Along with nutrition, we want to make sure we're feeding calves warm water, which can definitely be a pain throughout winter since we have a higher risk of it freezing. But we want to offer warm water within about 30 minutes of feeding milk to help drive grain intake and get those extra calories into them through grain as well. If we feed warm water, we can leave it out for about 15 to 20 minutes after milk feeding and then come back through and dump those pails so we lower our risk of having frozen pails. We also want to make sure that when the calf comes out to a hutch or into a calf barn that she's dry. The calf's hair acts as an insulator, and when that hair is wet, she can't use it for that insulating property. We also want to make sure that when we're bedding that we have straw that they can nestle into, because that straw is going to help her keep an air pocket around her and help keep her warm. And we want to make sure that we keep that bedding dry, because as soon as that calf gets wet, like I said, that hair loses its ability to insulate her, and then we're losing a lot of heat that we should be keeping in. Finally, we can implement jackets to help keep calves warmer. Jackets will give calves about an extra 10 degrees of heat throughout winter. If we use jackets, we want to make sure those stay dry as well. Otherwise, they'll have the same negative effect that a wet hair coat would. So as we get into winter and colder temperatures, we really want to evaluate the nutrition, the milk temperatures, how we're feeding water, bedding, and putting jackets on our calves to help keep them growing throughout the winter months. If you have any questions, contact your CP Feeds nutritionist and they can help you figure out the best solutions for your calf programs. Thank you.